Okay, we're going to get underway with our next session, which is all about creativity as a driver of community making and well-being. Can creativity drive our communities? And what better person to have here than the Chief Executive of Creative New Zealand, who told me earlier that he's only ever had one employer, which is Creative New Zealand. He's only worked in one place. That's how much he likes creativity. That's how much creativity has driven him. He can't leave being creative. So to tell us about how it can drive us, Stephen Wainwright from Creative New Zealand.
Kia ora, Paddy. Kia ora koutou. I did prepare an interpretive dance, but Paddy said, look, we're running a bit late, so maybe on Friday night or Thursday night, one of those other functions, we'll do that there.
Or when I shout the Sauvignon Blanc later,
yeah, that would be good.
Creative dance will be on there as well. Okay.
Thank you for the chance to introduce creativity as a driver of community well-being. Whiria ti tangata, whiria ngā toi, whiria ngā hapori. Weave the people, weave the arts, weave the community. And speaking of this LGNZ community, I'd like to add my voice to the other voices we've already heard to acknowledge the passing of Dave Cull, a hugely important figure in local government and a passionate supporter of the place of the arts, culture and creativity in our collective well-being. I think every conference I've been to, I've seen Dave connecting people, and it's quite strange to be here without him. But I know he would love it that we were all here. And as our good friend, Te Maurata Chair Benita Bingham said, Happy New Year! And we've got the holiday next year to look forward to. We've just celebrated Matariki, which is, of course, a time to reset and dream and make intentions for the future. When Matariki rises, so too do our aspirations, which I guess is why we're all here for this conference. Of course, aspirations have a context, and among the many lessons of the past year, we rediscovered that the simple act of communing can also be aspirational. We missed this when we couldn't do it, didn't we? And so it's terrific to be here with you all as we collectively reimagine Aotearoa from the community up. We know that many councils understand the powerful role that culture, the arts and creativity contribute to the well-being of their communities. The good news is that New Zealanders feel the same way. And if you're interested in this, I urge you to have a look at the independent research that Colmar Brunton does called New Zealanders in the Arts, and that is all on our website. It's been a difficult year or so, and I'd just like to acknowledge the ongoing commitment of every single local authority in Aotearoa with whom we partner to deliver the Creative Communities scheme. This is no flash in the pan. We have, of course, been partnering with this for 25 years. And we're also very pleased to have just made new investment to 26 councils through the Local Government Arts Fund. The levels of interest in arts and culture strategy development through the fund tell us that many councils recognise the powerful strategic contribution the arts can make towards the recovery, resilience and well-being of communities. Over the past 18 months here at Creative New Zealand, we've re-energised our advocacy work, and one of our key focuses, in fact, is working with local authorities, because we know that here in New Zealand, local authorities play a profound role in cultural well-being, community well-being, social well-being, environmental well-being and economic well-being. It's my great pleasure to introduce my boss, Caren Rangi, who will open this plenary session on creativity as a driver of well-being. She'll be joined in this panel by Rangi Kipa, Elisapeta Heta, Mayor Sandra Hazlehurst and Meg Williams, each of whom are champions in their own right for the role creativity plays in the well-being of our communities. Mihi mai kia koutou. Caren is chair of our Arts Council, the governing board, a little bit like mayors, I suppose, but it's a bit of a secret that I'll share with you, so it won't be a secret for long, that Caren began her working life as a local government sector manager for the Office of the Auditor General. So Caren knows better than most the value local government makes to the well-being of New Zealanders. Kia ora, Caren.
Te pau nei e wahi ake, ko au ko te mokopona o tō ngai whare e māko ai whare ka tomo atu i e koko. Kia ora ana tātou katoa, warm Pacific greetings to you all. Ngā mihi mahana ki te mana whenua, e raurangatira mā tēnā tātou katoa. It's only been 21 years since I was last at a local government conference, and I've already seen 5 people who were there the last time. And so that's great. Some continuity is great, but it's great to meet a whole lot of new people too. I can't imagine us having a conversation in local government about reimagining Aotearoa from the community up without having a conversation that includes the arts and culture and creativity in New Zealand. And it's great to be here as part of a creative collaboration with my mates here on the couch to be talking about this to you, because we think going forward it is a creative collaboration between you and local government, our friends in central government, us over at Creative New Zealand, and all the other thousands of people who are involved in the delivery and enjoyment of arts and culture here in Aotearoa. So I just wanted to share some thoughts today from Creative New Zealand. And so first of all, you saw Stephen waving around the New Zealand and the Arts research. The evidence is really clear about the role that arts and culture plays in community wellbeing. And we know that as part of your own reform that community wellbeing is right at the heart of it, as is placemaking. And arts and culture is what gives your flavour for you in your local areas. So we've got national, international research that shows that global arts benefits health and wellbeing. We've got our local research here in Aotearoa that shows that New Zealanders are more positive than ever about the role of the arts, that the arts helped people get through COVID-19, that arts connects communities, even though we know that access could be improved. So, as Stephen said, I encourage you to have a look at this research. It just shows really clearly that New Zealanders want to see arts and culture as part of their future. So, we know that it's important. We also know that it's already happening. And we've got many examples out there of arts and culture that's promoting community wellbeing. So, I don't know about you, but I don't think I would have been able to get through lockdown last year without books and films and music and artists to talk to and the chance to dance in the living room with great music, finish that Tivove quilt that's been sitting around for 20 years. Arts played a huge role. We also know that we've got great examples of arts bringing communities together. So arts is a way of people to display and be really proud of their identity. And we saw that in Christchurch. We heard from artists from Ōtautahi Creative Spaces who told us that while prescription medication hasn't made a difference for many of them, their creative practice has. So we know that investing in arts and culture is also investing in education and skill building. And when we give young people access to creativity, it's a genesis that can change their trajectory completely. And we've got organisations all over the country who are helping and equipping our tamariki with the skills that they need for the future. We know arts, culture and creativity has a key role in placemaking, and we heard Hamish talk about the importance of this just before. It's arts, culture and creativity that makes our towns, our cities, vibrant, attractive places that people are proud to live in, proud to work in. And so our research shows that 2 in 3 New Zealanders agree that arts and culture have a vital role to play in the future of where they live. And 2 in 3 agree that it's important that where they live is recognised as a place that supports excellence in the arts. So, you know, arts and culture are delivering wellbeing outcomes in your libraries, your galleries, wonderful places like this venue here, in every dance class, in every kapahaka group across the community. But what about all the artists and arts organisations who are working in our schools and in our prisons and our aged care facilities? So there's work going on in all parts of our community to promote wellbeing. The third point I wanted to share is that, and it's a bit of a call to action to all of us really, to listen, because the answers around arts, culture and creativity are right there in our communities already. And you'll just see behind me examples, many examples of the wonderful projects happening in your communities, many of them with your support. So we don't have to look too far to work out how we can harness the potential of all this creativity to become a driver for community wellbeing. And we saw earlier in the year that Tauranga City Commissioners, they understood this. So more than 10% of the total submissions received on their long-term plan were about arts and culture. And they recently committed $750,000 new investment into the range of arts, culture and heritage projects. And as their chair, Antoli, said, the arts is sometimes seen as nice to have, but we've seen arts and culture having a huge impact right across our communities. There's lots of advantages. The creative sector can be extremely healing. And we hear this right across the country when we did a bit of a road tour with the Arts Foundation. And again, we got a double quote for our Benita Bigham, but in Taranaki, Te Maruata Chair said, she spoke of a certain wahine who now knows the call of mahi toi must be answered for her mental well-being, describing mahi toi as her soul, her salvation, something that can't be separated from who she is, and a powerful testimony to the role of the arts in our personal well-being. So the next thought is that if we enable creativity to thrive in our communities, we will help our communities to thrive. And something that we are extremely interested with our Creative New Zealand whānau, but we know that you as local government, you want to see communities that are healthy, connected and thriving. And what better ways then to use the arts, culture and creativity. Finally, we think local government's already on the right track. But there is more to be done, and we're really keen to work together with you and with central government to continue this important work you're already doing for you and for your arts communities. And you've only got to look at the finalists in tomorrow night's Excellence Awards for Cultural Wellbeing to see some fantastic examples of local government in this space. I think it was either Jim or Hamish earlier on talked about the fact that the proximity of local government to communities is one of your greatest assets. You understand what the people want, you understand who you've got there in your community. And so with that understanding and with our support, we'd really welcome a conversation as how do we strengthen our relationship to reimagine Aotearoa from the community up using arts, culture and creativity. So that's pretty much me. I'm going to go from one rangi to another rangi before we hand over to our panel discussion. What I'm really looking forward to today with the panel is their views on how creativity and arts does drive wellbeing. And we hope that today's session helps all of you to think collectively about how we can work together to support communities all across Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kia ora ana, he kia manue.
Kia ora tātai. E mihi ana, kai te tautoko nā mihi kua mihi ai i tēnei rangi. Ki te whenua e pupuri tonu i o nei iwi kai te mihi atu tēnā kōtau. Little nervous, invited to this thing. I didn't actually realise what this conference was going to be, and thanks, cuz. And I was I was quite nervous about what I might be able to contribute until my other cousins said, give it to them. So I came in, I landed about 12 o'clock and came in right at the end of the Prime Minister's address and heard the waiata being sung, te aroha, te wakapono, me te rangi Māori. Love, our belief systems, our values and peace, and I thought, we're a pretty bloody lucky country. I kind of struggle talking about creativity and the arts, sometimes because those words aren't that adequate to frame up that whole body of mātauranga, that whole practice of being human. I come from a people in Taranaki that had 2.5 million acres of land confiscated, and creativity for us is actually the only solution that we've got to stay alive. It's been 160 plus years of attrition really against our communities, and so creativity has been one of the few pathways for us to stay human in a country that's systematically dismantled us over a long period of time. So if you were to ask me honestly about my relationship with local government, it's been problematic because as far as I'm concerned, local government's been hand in hand with dismantling our communities. But in the pursuit of the waiata that was sung today, and in following in the footsteps of our people and their undying love that's expressed through the principles of manakitanga, that continues to be expressed, I have a really positive and aspirational vision for our future. We've recently gone through, over the last 4 or 5 years, the rebuilding of our regional airport terminal in New Plymouth, built upon the second piece of land that was confiscated from one of our hapu of Puketapu, to service the region's needs for an airport. And so about 4 years ago, when we found out that the local government body, our District Council, New Plymouth District Council, had already commissioned a design for the new terminal, our people were pretty pissed off. And so there was a series of meetings that happened over a very short period of time. The first meeting, we went in to meet with them and we said, look, we've heard that there's been a new terminal being posed for the airport. And they said, yep, and you're one of 20-something special interest groups. And we reminded them that we are the special interest group, that the land of the previous airport came off us, and then the Crown gave that back to the council, which they sold off as an industrial estate. And then this present airport came off our people, and this is the piece of land that Puketapu takes its identity from. It doesn't come from an ancestor, it comes from an act that happened on this piece of land. So we reminded them that we're a new generation, we're tired of this behaviour, and we actually haven't got anything left to lose, and we'll do whatever it takes to stonewall this project. And a series of conversations led on from there, and it actually was aspirational leadership by a couple of people in the senior leadership team of our local council that changed the course of this whole project. We reminded them that we're tired of being invisible. On our own landscape, and that our tamariki mokopuna deserve more. So, I'm really proud of the combined effort that it took from our community to work with the council to create an embedded narrative that came from our people, an embedded narrative in the design of the airport. We started all over again and embedded our narrative from the ground up throughout this particular asset. The asset now sings with our stories. And it's a really faithful journey to try and find and unpack the truth, to try and explore the fidelity of the relationship of the building to the whenua that it alights itself upon, that it sits upon. Getting an asset and restoring our visibility to part of our landscape is one thing, but probably the most significant probably the most significant thing that's happened is the restoration of our own community in the process. So for a community, I find it difficult to talk to other people what it looks like to be invisible. So for our community, to have their narrative, to have their languages, you know, and when we're talking about if we're talking about the arts, we're talking about all of our cultural collateral that is the glue that holds us together. It's the tangible and intangible parts of our culture. You know, mores, ethics, norms, codes of conduct, all of that sort of stuff. It's the glue that actually holds our communities together. So it's one thing having an asset on the landscape. That's one thing that restores some visibility, because for the most part, you could drive through Taranaki and think that you're in Canada or Australia or somewhere else. So, you know, for me, the ability for us to use our arts, use our culture to restore our visibility, to put back the things that were dismantled is a journey into, I suppose it's a pathway to social justice, not only for our community, but I think it makes Tāwhiri, it makes Pākehā people better Pākehās in relationship with us. You know, it means that you have to be accountable to living in a land with us so that we can clearly see each other, so that we can hear each other's stories, we can see each other's dreams and aspirations that we have for our collective tamariki mokopuna. Am I done in my time? I just really want to encourage you, because I don't think that if you haven't as a council embarked upon some of these courageous journeys, some of these courageous conversations about settling some scores that need to be settled, and about you know, at least challenging yourself to meet conversations about what the future might look like, I really encourage you, because I don't think you will realize just how many benefits there will be for your community. I recognize that it's a tough conversation, and you know, we see it day in, day out on stuff comments, stuff.co comments, but you know, I'm always surprised by how the Māori community rises to the challenge on a daily basis to offer their love and support for reshaping our nation to meet actually what our old people thought we should have had. Ngā mihi.
Well, that was amazing, and certainly a challenge that we all need to rise to in one way or the other. Some comments here. Thank you for your contribution, has come up many times. Thank you very much for your contribution, has come up many times here. Now, here's a good theme that we can start with, and perhaps if we start down that end and we move a little bit quickly. I mean, what is something that local government can do, and we'll come through each of you actually. What is something that local government can do to address the sort of the historical stigma or the perceptions that Rangi has been alluding to? Is there some?
In a lot of respects, everything Rangi has said, I almost just want to reiterate. As somebody that works within the built environment, you know, with kind of as the intermediary point between councils and mana whenua as the key stakeholder, you know, I can't underscore enough the importance of the client, any client, be it local government, be it private developers, actually having done the homework themselves and put the energy and effort into thinking innovatively, if it has to be framed in that way, or really dig into maybe the hard mahi to actually understand what you might be doing to block access or barriers or equity or justice in this situation. There's a huge amount of mahi to be done, and often as the architects that come to the table, sometimes we end up then as the creative practitioners also having to help the client unpick that, and that can be a challenge. So I would definitely say that sometimes you can work with us to get that process going, but it's really helpful, I think, for all councils to be able to do that themselves. And so I want to tautoko rangi in that particular wero, because, I can't say it enough.
Yeah. Kia ora. And Meg, I mean, from your position with the New Zealand Festival of the Arts, what is there that councils can do to address some of the issues that Rangi has raised?
Well, I think it begins with conversation, doesn't it? And from Rangi's example, that was a project that got to the right place in the end, and I think learning from that lesson around having the conversation early on. We've just been through a process in Wellington City Council with the development of the Arts and Culture and Creativity Strategy, Aotearoa, and I think I'd really urge councils when it comes to broader than individual projects, it's who comes around the table for those first conversations of setting priorities, because there's a lot to do, and we've heard that so much today, and I'm sure tomorrow as well. And so that idea of co-creation, beginning with mana whenua, tangata whenua, and then the role of artists themselves, and they are also resourceful and also kind of have the answers in my experience, but often don't perhaps understand how to engage in local government and in democratic process outside of being a voter. So that sense of councils working together with its community, as I know, happens every day, but particularly around the development of policy, I think can be really powerful. And we, the idea of co-creation is something that I think provides a really strong foundation to work upon.
Sure, thank you. Good answer. And Sandra, I mean, what, from your perspective, what can be done to address those concerns and that challenge essentially laid down by Rangi?
Kia ora koutou katoa. Well, I think that first and foremost, you need to understand and have the vision and the passion to feel what the arts and culture does for a community. And for us, it's hearing from our community, and our community started with a vision which was to be the best arts, cultural and events centre in New Zealand, where we could celebrate the past, nurture the present and prepare our future generations. So we have to start with that passion and that vision, because as local government we can provide the beautiful facilities. In Hastings District we provided Toi Toi Hawke's Bay Arts and Events Centre at a cost of $40 million. And that was a big decision. Our community came up with 3,000 submissions, 80% of them told us to get on and fix that place. But it was a group of rangatahi who came to us and said, and they sang in our chamber, and they moved every councillor in the room. And they said, without this facility, just like this beautiful facility here, where will we sing? And that was enough for our council to decide that we had a role and a responsibility to provide a place for people to sing. Those young rangatahi are now learning to sing opera in University of Waikato and Wellington. And this is the opportunity that we have to transform lives. We have to invest in infrastructure for facilities for performing arts and culture. And that's absolutely without the investment. I think of what we did last year after COVID. We had a community that needed to be uplifted. So we started with Miharo. Miharo was an online performance with all our artists who we paid to come together to uplift our community spirits post-COVID. I think of the strategy and the framework that we can do as local government. We've done Toi 2. You can all copy it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And Toi 2 was bringing 20 different groups across our region of Hawke's Bay together to say, how do we celebrate the arts? How do we tell our story? How do we engage with all parts of our diverse community? This morning we sang a waiata, tū tira mai nā iwi. That is a waiata. That came from Heritonga, I'd just like to add. Very proud of our waiata. But that waiata says, let's bring our people together. And that's what we do in local government, and we do it so well. We bring our people together, we build the facilities, we prepare the frameworks, we connect everybody, and then we celebrate, and we make sure that we invest. Because you can't do this without investing in our artists. And all of those strategies have to have an investment package around. And I thank the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Heritage for the $480,000 that we got for our region to deliver our strategy called Toi Tū. Okay. But Tihei Heritonga, that's our strategy, that is our vision, that is to make sure we celebrate the arts and bring everybody together.
Okay, well, let's give that a round of applause. Hey, this is turning into quite a good session, isn't it? Quite enjoying it. Very creative, and I just do have a few comments just to change tone because it was very emotional and now very inspiring. And just do want to address the comment from Anonymous. Paddy, you're blocking all the photos. I don't know exactly what they are, but I know I don't want to block creativity when we're right at this point. So whoever Anonymous is, I apologise. And then the next Anonymous is saying, can Paddy please sit down and stop skulking around the stage? So, I'm, you know, like any creative process, I'm getting mixed messages of what I should be doing, but we'll move on. But yeah, but let's pick up on some of these themes that are here, and how can councils, and Caren, maybe you could come in on this. Is there a way for councils to you know, it's a big concept, but to use the arts to decolonise their areas. Is there a place for councils to use the arts and creativity to help decolonise some spaces?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely. Arts, culture and creativity is the best barocca you could have for the hangover of colonisation, right?
That's good. I might steal that one day.
Because of the way, not only that it defines us and helps us to declare our identities, but also how it connects us. You know, Rangi talked about our joint grandchildren. We want our arts, culture and creativity to be present so our grandchildren can both define their own identities, but their shared identities that they have. And I also think actually, and I'm talking to the councillors in the room, it starts with those of us at the decision-making table, right? Examining how much we really understand about Te Tiriti, about what it means for us as an organisation, which is the journey we're going through at our board table at the moment, and, you know, having to be really honest about what we do know and what we don't know.
Sure. And Elisapeta, I mean, is there a way for, you know, you're an expert in this area in the world of architecture. Is this a real avenue for decolonisation through creativity in our spaces?
Absolutely. I mean, it's sad enough that I get called an expert when I'm 33, because there are so few Māori wahine, Pasifika wahine, that exist in this space to take up the mantle of expertise because of the severe dislocation of people of colour from the kind of industry I'm in. So yes, in a big way, you know, we know that from a Te Ao Māori perspective, if you were to talk about things like te whare pora, conceptually but also physically, that's about centering our artists in our communities. So if you were to think about the health and well-being and strength of our arts practices, all of that, our whare, our mahitoi, you know, the fact that I can wear a moko kauai and not feel completely petrified of this group of people, all of those things, to me, are about truly centering our artistic expression as being intrinsic to who we are as a people and not additive in a nice decoration. Sure. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's a problem that I'm an expert, but the fact that I take up the mantle and try to advocate as hard as I can for our rangatahi, which we keep touching on today, and I think it will be a continued kōrero, is about access to these kinds of spaces. That is really, I think, how we truly start to decolonise, is making our young people feel more engaged to be able to pick up all of these kōrero and be central to every single government decision.
Sure. And another area is, you know, we talked about the arts being a nice to have, and Meg, I'm going to come to you here. I mean, obviously with the New Zealand Festival of Arts, you know, it's a big festival, it's successful, people are able to engage in it, but we'll start with you, because smaller councils and smaller communities, for them, having the arts is, according to these questions, a nice to have, and it's hard to get. And there, do you see a place where there could be funding directed specifically to the smaller communities so they can have something, obviously not on the scale of what you've got, but something on their own scale, direct funding to smaller communities?
Yeah, and I think taking the idea of culture being who we are and how we live our lives, I think that, and art being an expression of that. And so I think it's essential that art can be present in places, and often it is present, it's just not visible, and speaking to what Elisapeta and Rangi have been saying. And I think as I understand it through the Creative Communities grants, and I know that there is a focus from central government on bringing more investment to local communities through the recent Ministry of Culture and Heritage funds and so on. And I guess we've still got work to do as a national sector to make sure that there is awareness of and the ability for those communities to connect with those opportunities. I'd also put a word in for looking at what you do have. Investment is really important, money is really important, I completely agree with that. And space is important. So one of the things that artists tell us is as cost of living goes up, spaces for studios are curtailed, just places to work. So any facilities, they can be beautiful and large like this, or they might be small community spaces. Wellington City Council is doing a great thing at the moment, which is looking at the usage capacity of any assets, no matter big or small, and how it's used. Could be by sports clubs, could be by community groups. And if that space can be released for people in our community, artists in our community, then they're just given a space to be, and that can also really activate those things as well. So money is super important, but it's also not just about money. There's lots of other ways, I think, that councils can support, no matter the scale of their community.
Sandra, what do you think of that idea of some sort of fund that smaller councils can access in order to invigorate their arts sector?
Oh, it's hugely important. Everybody needs to have, you know, I mean, the Creative New Zealand funding for small communities is, you know, I just see the difference when
you didn't finish.
Is just amazing. So, and I think of the example, because, you know, I think we did a mural, and Caren was with us when we unveiled this amazing mural for our Pacifica community. And our Pacifica community are 5% in Hastings, Aotearoa. But when we have our season of pickers, we might have, you know, before COVID, 4,500 of our Pacifica community come to harvest our crops and pick our apples. And so what we did is we put this mural up, and we got the funding from Caren's Creative New Zealand, and what that did and how that transformed and acknowledged the importance of our Pacifica community just made so much difference. And it was $25,000, and we got the funding. But this mural on the library that shows the importance of our Pacifica community was just made everybody's heart sing. It was incredible.
Okay, speaking of heart singing, there has been a request from the audience. Paddy, and this is from Anonymous again, show us your dance moves. Yeah, well, maybe tonight, down in that little wee square there, when I shout that bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, I promise we've all got to share it, and Stephen will bring the creative dance. But we've come to the end of the session, but Rangi, you've been here listening. You've felt the vibe of the audience there as you laid down your wedo. Could you perhaps give us some concluding comments on how you feel things have been received? And I know it's been a short panel, but how you feel things have come across here. We'll give you the last word in the spirit of creativity.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that, but what I do want to talk about is if we're going to talk about, I'd be interested in just reiterating the issue around equity that Peta brought up. I think that it's one thing making sure that your processes are adequately resourced and that you value that. And I think the other thing is that that you actually value the decisions that are made by the people that you get in to participate in the process, because it's one thing funding our people. We have a hard enough time just trying to meet the demand at the moment, but it's just pisses you off even further if they don't actually listen to you and put into action. So one of the things that I notice in projects that I'm involved with now is that there's a brief, and that you come into the project seeking to answer the brief, and invariably we bring a brief of our own. We're trying to figure out how do we, one, try to meet the needs and aspirations of a particular project, but then how does that project serve our people? And so we're trying to figure out how can we join the goals that you're trying to reach in this thing here, so that it might reach some of the goals that our people have in our community that we have no one else to talk to. They're just things that have sit amongst our communities on our hearts, waiting for a time, waiting for a project that might help realise these other objectives and goals that our community has to realise well-being amongst our own people. Great,
that was a very creative use of a creative ending to get another point out there. So a round of applause for our great panel. That was awesome.